Welcome back to my channel, everybody, and today I'm going to teach you probably the single greatest thing you can do to improve your designs. I'm super excited, and if any of you know me, you know I say this all the time. It's time to shrink your fonts. But before we do that, let's go ahead and roll that intro. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started here, but before we do, I have to tell you, you definitely need to subscribe to the channel. So you go ahead and subscribe, and let's start talking about shrinking your fonts. This is the easiest way to improve your layout design no matter what you're doing. I don't care if you're doing UI design, print design, this tip is gonna help you become a better designer. So what do I mean when I say shrink your fonts? Well, what I mean is you need to decrease the point size of your type. This will help your typography by allowing your design to open up and breathe with the white space that you've created. Let me show you exactly how this works. Here's an example of some typography, and we have a title heading and some body copy. What a lot of designers do is they put type on the page like this. They fill up a lot of the page space. They act like laying out something is like real estate investing, as if the land on the page is super valuable and we have to gobble up as much property as we can and fill it with stuff. That's not how typography works. We're trying to create something readable for the user so that they can get the message that we're trying to tell them. So our goal is just to make the design as accessible as possible. And that does not mean making the type as big as possible. Let me show you how shrinking your type down will actually make a big impact in your design. So looking at this design, let's go ahead and take this typography down by 50%. The difference between the two designs is incredible. I mean, going back and forth, we see that there's no room, we've taken up all the real estate on the page, big typography, and then you take it down by 50% and you can still read it, but it opens up all the white space. Your eye can travel through this design. You can see the details and you can take in the information because there's not so much going on that you feel overwhelmed. The white space around your type gives clarity to the message, and it cleans up your design by making it more minimalist and easy to understand. Now, just to prove my point, check out how much space we've actually opened up by shrinking that font by 50%. We brought the type down by 50%, but we opened up space on all sides of the design. And notice that we didn't go and just fill this space up with other graphic elements, type, or pictures. We left it open, and that is what created the impact. By leaving all the open space, we gave a point of visual impact to the reader so they know exactly where to focus. They want to focus on the type. Just to help you visualize exactly how much space was opened up by shrinking the font, look at this graph. We shrunk our font by 50%, remember exactly 50% in the point size, but look at how much space that cleared. Here's a comparison between the original block that the type took up and the new block once we shrunk it by 50%. As you can see, shrinking the font by 50% actually gives us more than 50% more real estate. Shrinking your typography is an exponential equation. That means that going down 50% doesn't net 50% more white space. Going down by 50% nets more than 50% more white space. This is important. Understand that the impact you can have on your design by going down 10, 15, 30% on your type opens up exponentially more space and clears your design out. It gets rid of all the clutter of having big blocks of content, and it helps the audience focus on the content that you want them to take in. Now, I know you're probably sitting there going, this is great, but I don't know how to shrink my fonts. What am I supposed to do? I'm glad you asked. I'm gonna give you a few tips on how to shrink your fonts and do it correctly. The first thing we need to understand is where shrinking our fonts makes the most impact. And that would be where there's the most type. So the body copy, whatever your large chunk of type is, that's where you want to shrink your fonts the most. Whether that's the block of content on your website or the chunk of details on your business card, those are the areas you want to shrink down. So what font size do you put your body copy at? Well, that's a tough question because it totally depends on what font you're using. Here's a fact, between 9 and 11 point is the ideal readability font size for most typefaces. And I know there's people out there saying, But then the old people can't read it, and they're all gonna throw my design away, and I'll never be able to reach the old people. That's completely not true. In fact, all newspapers are printed in 10-point font. And I'm pretty sure the old people have no trouble reading their newspapers. You're probably thinking, this is great, I get it. Between 9 and 11-point font and body copy, I'll keep them nice and small, but how do I know exactly what point size to use? Well, here's a couple of really easy tips to get exactly the right point size every single time. If you're using an unconventional typeface or you don't know exactly what point size to use, go ahead and open a Word document. Find your system default sans serif, which would be Helvetica if you're on Apple, or Arial if you're on PC. Type out something random in 9-point Arial or Helvetica, and then next to it, type the same thing, but in the font that you want to use. Then all you have to do is visually balance the two. For example, here we have Arial at 9-point font, and we're using this Rollgates font, but we don't know exactly what size to make it. So we just visually balance the two, and we find that Rollgates looks most readable at 10-point font. Now that's within our 9 to 11-point range, and it looks great. This is a great way to balance any font, and it'll provide you with maximum readability and clarity. But what if you're designing on digital? You're thinking 9-point is great for print, but on digital it doesn't translate. I don't know how many pixels tall to make my fonts. And you would be right to be concerned, because Arial 9-point on paper looks great. But then when you take that to a 1080p artboard, yeah, not looking so good. Can't even read it. Well, here's the easiest way to do this. Go ahead and open that Word document again, find your maximum readability, somewhere between 9 and 11, and type something out with the font that you want to use. Then set your zoom mode to 100% on the piece of paper. You'll be able to visualize approximately how tall and legible the font is. Then you just translate that size to whatever digital design you're doing, whether that's a website or a slide or a video. In this case, Arial 24-point on a 1080 artboard is about equal to 9-point on a piece of paper. This helps us get the best visual impact every time, keeps our font small, and keeps our design clear of clutter. As you practice this over time, you're not going to have to open that Word document to visualize the correct weight and readability for fonts anymore. You'll be able to just tell by eyeballing it, a little too big, a little too small, and you'll find the perfect size every single time. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Go ahead and drop a like if you learned something in this video, and keep applying this to your design work. As you grow and mature as a designer, you're going to find that shrinking your fonts gives you clarity and focus in your designs and makes them look so much cleaner. If you still aren't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that and drop me a comment. Let me know what your favorite font is and in what point size. I'd love to strike up a conversation about it. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next video.